Good evening and welcome to Smart Entrepreneurship Decoded on Transcontinental Times. Time has really flown by. It's nearly 35 weeks since we started, and we have seen 34 previous guests speak to us about a variety of topics related to entrepreneurship, investments, incubation, acceleration, both from India and overseas. One area that always tends to fascinate me and is also the focus of a lot of the government's attention across the world is the SME sector. Nothing frustrates or astonishes an SME business owner more than the fact that when he sees similar companies in the startup world as his getting funded enormous amounts of money, they wonder why they have been running these companies for so many years, often profitably, whereas a similar company comes up in the startup sphere and attracts this huge amount of funding. A lot of SME owners have expressed their frustration to me that they find this new economy and this startup business a bit of a letdown because they feel kind of left behind in this whole thing. So I thought, why not bring somebody who understands this sector well? Our guest tonight is a multifaceted personality, not just on the SME front, but is a leading consultant for companies from across the world. I would like you to welcome Mr. Manoj Tandon of Dalitso. He's the managing director of this company, based out of Gurgaon, with offices in various parts of the world. Welcome, Manoj. Very nice to have you tonight.
Same here, Nalin. Pleasure to be
I
here.
was, I was reading about your journey, and SME is not a very an area which has got a lot of sex appeal, right? A lot of people like to work with the big six, etc. I know you work with other companies as well, but a lot of the work that you do is with SMEs in India and all over. But before we get into that, you yourself have uh, the badge of the twin eyes from India, right? The IIT and the IIM thing. So why then not a high flying corporate career or a startup kind of thing? And why did you venture out into consulting on your own?
So actually, Nalin, you said it in a very interesting way that yes, I did went to IIT and then I went to IIM. And actually, I did join the corporate world. I started in the IT industry, and as it happens, IT industry at that time was a very small industry. You know, we hardly had 2,000 people all over the country employed in only two companies, TCS and one more. And the way it happens, I used to go overseas to do a lot of work. And then finally, I decided to switch. And Fujitsu wanted me to start their Dallas operations. So they sent me there. And then I joined a consulting company in California, where I became a managing partner. It was a small company which grew to a fairly large $1 billion company. And then I came back, joined a company called Computer Sciences Corporation, and I was their divisional president. And again, I was the first Indian to be a part of their European board. Now, what happens is that in this journey of corporate world, I had done many firsts in the sense of, you can call it entrepreneurship of some kind, opening a new operation in US, joining IT industry when it was very small. We were all learning the ropes under some very big stalwarts who I had the fortune to be mentored by. CSC also, I was the first Indian in their European board, so I had to understand the whole dynamics from the beginning and to this thing. So in 2013, finally, when I had been there, done that, I kind of thought that I have some good years of working life left in me. Now I have a choice. I can continue and do the same thing, over and over again, or I could try something very different. A kind of an entrepreneurial mentality, but not exactly that entrepreneurial thing in that sense. So I spoke to various people, and all of them told me one thing. I said, tell me something where I can actually do something new, give back to the business world, which has given me so much. So everybody told me one thing, that the SME sector and the startups, they need people like you, but unfortunately they can't either afford you, or people are not interested. Like your kind of people are not interested. And if they need that guidance and they get to try to go to a bigger consulting company, it's not affordable. I mean, they are small, they are startups.
True. True.
So I decided to coin this term called affordable consulting, a kind of a thing where I don't charge them too much money, but I guide them and I mentor them and help. So it's been now around 8 years that I have been in this line,
So,
and it's been a great journey. Both from for my
before
own.
we move into the SME side of it, I'm
Hmm.
always curious when I meet people who have passed out from the IITs, IIMs a little earlier, a few generations earlier.
Hmm.
You must be coming across the graduates of today, right, from the same institutes.
Yes,
And so, from that time to now, I'm not. My question is not on the qualitative side of education and all that. What I
sure,
want to know is when you see these young people, what is the difference between the way they approach things and the way uh, our generation approached the industry or life in general? What are the few things that is different about the young people coming out today?
sure. Some things are very positive. For example, they are more aware about what's happening in the world. We didn't have that kind of a worldview. Part of it is because of internet and globalization. Part of it is because the thinking of any of youngsters have evolved and changed. Second is that they are more willing to take risks. In our case, it was like you do IIT, IIM, and you go to corporate. The entrepreneurship as a this thing was not very strong. In my batch, if you look at it, the hardcore entrepreneurs are very, very limited in number.
True.
But today's generation is more driven, more dynamic. They want to take chances. Part of the reason also is that if they don't succeed, there's always the corporate world to fall back upon. But the fact that they have it in them to do something is very, very amazing and very endearing. I mean, I really like
Do you
the
do you also find that the sheer confidence of the this generation is a lot different from we were a little hesitant. We would think we are being
absolutely,
respectful, but we were hesitant. But today's generation,
absolutely. Yes, this generation is very good in that respect. The only thing they need is channelization of their energy and their dynamism, giving them the direction. Otherwise, I would venture out to hesitate to say that they are
you,
in many ways much superior than us.
I couldn't agree more. But you made an important point when you said channelize their energies. Do you think because of the multitude of opportunities they had, see, for better or worse, for us it was a black and white world. You
Yeah.
do this, then you do this, and your life is set, or whatever. That is what we were
Yes.
coached. But because of
Yes.
the multitude of opportunities that are there, do you see a possibility where more of them get a little confused as to what to do?
Yeah, there are two kinds of possible but the issues that actually have come up because of these opportunities. One is that they are more confused because ultimately there's a peer pressure, there's a pressure of outside world. Hey, that person is doing this. He's bought a Mercedes, and what about you? That kind of pressure. The second one also is that somewhere in this multitude of opportunities, uh, they are not able to judge very well as to what suits them, and what is something which they can do, which kind of, not everybody can be everything. So knowing yourself and then using that to actually find out what is best for you is also an important part, which is not so this thing.
Let's get to the topic we started with, the SME
Sure.
sector, and let's focus on India for a moment.
Yeah.
Why is it such a almost a badge of dishonor to be an SME? It's like being a poor cousin to the industry, right? The industry needs them without a doubt.
Yes.
But why are we in such a stage where it is almost a badge of dishonor that so many of them just want to shut and try something new.
Shut as in
Try
what?
something in the startup world, or to make money some other way. But running
Yeah,
an industry in the SME sector seems to be such a hard task. I saw my father-in-law do it for 30, 40 years and give up, but it just
right,
seems
right.
such an uphill task. What is it that will help or uncork this huge potential that is there of
Yeah,
an asset base the country is already invested in?
right. So actually, the reason is that there are multiple reasons, and of course, I'll cover a few, and I'm sure there are many more, which obviously can be talked about. So, for example, when I meet people and when I meet youngsters who have kind of dreams in their eyes and they want to do things, uh, there's a lot of lack of clarity in terms of why is it that they want to, you know, uh, why do they want to start go on their own? So it seems to be quite often things like, my friend is doing it, my relative is doing it, and he's very successful. Successful in quotes, nobody is clear about, what successful means, etc. So there is this desire to actually do. I also want to be in it. The Me Too word, as they call it, right? Uh, so this industry has become full of what you could call as the Me Too startups. Uh, there is no new thought, no new idea. It's just that somebody else is doing it, so I want to do it, kind of stuff, and that causes a lot of failures. And the number of failures that are happening, almost 90-95%, actually makes it a very risky path to go into. And therefore, I mean, to answer your question in a way, when you say why is it, you're basically saying why is it that it's kind of looked down upon, right? Am I right, Nalin? Have I understood that part correctly?
Yeah, because today, being in the SME sector, startup has got some sex appeal, a lot of investors looking at it, media writing about it. But then you have these 6.5 crore SMEs that are lying on the side. 80, 90%, they themselves, their industry association says they are sick or dead or non-revivable. So we have an asset base here already invested that has contributed to the economy. What is it that can be done to unlock the SMEs to their potential? Because there's a lot of focus on the startups, but nobody talks about what is already there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. I now I've understood. I've understood the question that you're asking. Yeah. So that is so one of the reasons like I just mentioned, why you have so many of them just lying there and really not giving any returns, is that people have not really thought through why they want to do the startup, what is it that they are looking at, and therefore, what so the startup is kind of, it's a stillborn business, designed, which is not going to make it. So that's one. The second I also mentioned about is that it's the quality of people that matters a lot. uh, the founding team, how good is the founding team, and how good are they, so that they are able to, it's not just enough that you have a business degree or an engineering degree for you to be able to. People have to be innovative, people have to be hardworking, people have to have that feet on the ground. As I always say, that you need to have feet on the ground and head in the cloud. uh, you have to envision things which are beyond what is there already, but at the same time have your feet on the ground, and that doesn't really happen very often. So that's the other problem. The third problem is that in countries like India, what I have seen is that the understanding of the customer is generally very weak. We are a very diverse country. and the customer behavior, the customer requirements, the customer needs, they keep changing uh, as the geography keeps changing. Uh, Most of the youngsters, most of the people, they don't have a in-depth understanding of the market, and therefore they are not able to. They start the business. They initially they cater it to a good this thing, and then after that they don't know how to expand because the market that they are playing in, they don't haven't understood it correctly. So there are many such reasons. One of them being the financial as well, of course, and get qualified people. Initially, when you are small, you are just the partners who are working things out, and then gradually, when you expand, you need people, and then don't get qualified and good people who are willing to take risk and work with you.
It's interesting, that quote of yours was very well said. Interestingly, when I was looking through the things that you've done and achieved in your life, one of your hobbies stood out very starkly to me, which is that you study war theory and wars over the last 40-45 years. Can you just walk me through that? How does somebody get interested in that? Because you are not in the armed forces, or how did it start exciting you? And is there any application of that in the real world, in the business world?
Yes, actually, what happened was, yeah, it's a long story. I'll tell you in a minute, in a short way. Uh, One day, in my school we had a very good library. I went there. I couldn't find any book to read, so I by chance picked up a few Reader's Digest manuals on war, World War II. They had come up with some huge books, and I just borrowed them. And when I started reading them, I just got glued to them. And something happened, and I just finished all those volumes in a week's time. When I returned to the librarian, she looked at me with a smile on her face, that how the hell could you finish all this in a week? And that led to my interest and my this thing. And I had a professor who actually taught us history, and that was not a very interesting subject for me. But then he taught us the battle plan between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi's fight with a using a good full chart, and this was in eighth grade, by the way. And both these events just got me hooked onto it, and I started reading a lot about it. Of course, my family didn't let me try my hand at joining the army, but the love for the war continued, and I have read the volumes of famous Chinese philosopher and so on and so forth. And I've been reading and writing and doing some small work here and there with the army chappies for last 30, 40 years. And yes, there is a lot of similarity between sometimes in a war, planning and starting and executing a war, as well as the SME business. And I'll tell you what that is. Whenever you have a war, the first thing is you have to understand your enemy very well and not underestimate it. In this case, replace the enemy part, and that's not a good replacement, but by customers and competitors. So you have to understand the customer very well, especially in the geography and in the segment you are going to operate in. At the same time, you also have to understand your competition extremely well. Once you know that, you have to look within yourself as to what is your capability to fight. Okay, if you try to fight with a Ola or Uber today, you don't stand a chance. So you don't fight to lose, you fight to win. So you find a segment, you find an area, maybe in a already existing mature market or somewhere big players are there where you have a chance, which is a gap. So wars utilize these gaps, armies utilize these gaps very beautifully. And to fight a war, you need a battle plan, which is similar to maybe a business plan or a marketing plan or a sales plan or operations plan, and very importantly, a financial plan as to how you will go about, because you have limited resources, you have limited money, you have limited number of people, and you have less time as well, because these days everything goes at a breakneck speed. So You got to find out how will you enter the market, where will you enter, who are your target customers, where will you attack first, where will you find a foothold, and then use that foothold to go deeper into the market, and so on and so forth. Very similar to what happens in a warfare. And then eventually, how do you grow? So once you have entered, you have made a beachhead, you have made your foothold. How do you grow? And doing all that, given the fact that you have only certain number of soldiers and certain number of equipment to fight with. In other words, you have certain amount of money only with which you have to make all this to do all this. Investor is like the government which funds the military. If you have a reasonable plausible plan, hopefully the ministry will give you the money to acquire more things. Similarly, if you have good investor, if you have an investor who has the money and who would like to invest in the area in which you are operating, you will be able to get the funding for that. So there's a lot of similarity between the two.
So you touched upon another pet peeve of mine. A lot of young startup founders tend to believe that there is no need of a plan because everything changes all the time. I don't need a plan. I'll figure it out as it goes. What's your take on that?
No. Yes, the plan needs to be changed. And yes, as the thing goes, plans are not cast in stone. But you need a plan because plan is like a lighthouse for a ship in a sea. You need to know the general direction. If you just go somewhere, you will reach somewhere. But if you go in the direction of the lighthouse, you will reach the right place. In between, there will be waves which will throw you away in the wrong directions. There will be storms which will maybe change the direction of your ship, but you need that lighthouse. So there is definitely a need for a plan, and yes, it will need changes as you go along. But that's what the dynamism of business is. There is, why do you need a plan? Why do you need a plan in the business context? Because you have to know how much you are not operating with unlimited resources. You are not operating in a unlimited market. You are not global. You are operating in a limited market, in a limited segment. You have limited resources, and you alone cannot succeed. If you alone were there, I would say don't have a plan, go ahead, you, because it's only you. But there are many other people also involved. So you need to have that direction. And by the way, if you need to want to raise funds, no investor will pay you any money if you don't have a clear cut plan and a clear cut direction in which you are going to go.
I'm so glad you said that because uh, I also face a lot of entrepreneurs, and whenever I hear this about the plan, I cringe because I tell them the same thing which you put so eloquently, that a plan will change the moment you start implementing it. It becomes useless. It keeps changing. It's
Absolutely.
okay, but it is important to show how you're thinking. How did you think about this? How did you approach it? What were the assumptions? What were the risks you mitigated? And what it is just I want to understand your thought process. The plan itself
Absolutely.
will change. Plan will be useless once you start implementing. That part is
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that. One last question, because speaking to you as a voice of sanity and wisdom, I lost track of time. But a last question. You see a lot of these young people trying to approach entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is not easy. It has been
Yeah.
romanticized now, and the media
Absolutely.
has raved about it, but it still doesn't make it easier just
No, it's
because it
not.
is hyped so much.
No.
What are the few things you would advise entrepreneurs to be ready for? How do they prepare for this journey? What should they do, regardless of the age group they are from?
Sure.
Midlife entrepreneurs have their own challenges. Let's not get into that.
Yes. Yeah.
But for young people, what should they prepare themselves with?
Yeah. So first is I'll just give a few points which I thought in fact, that was a message I had prepared for them in the entrepreneurship. One is do be an entrepreneur by all means, but don't do it because others are doing it. The fire has to come within. If you don't have that fire, there's no harm in being in a job. It's not. It doesn't make you any smaller. It doesn't make you any less smarter. Some people are not meant for that. So do it only if there's an internal fire in you. That's one. Second is that make sure that your business model is strong. Whether big or small, any company needs a solid business model, which means you make a thing for 80 rupees, you sell for 100 rupees, and you make money. That's the basics of it. Of course, I can't go into details of it, but basically have a good, strong business model. Make sure that what you are selling is actually solving a long-term problem of your clients and the market. Don't do things which you think could help. Don't imagine things. Have it grounded in reality that there is a problem, there is a need, and I'm fulfilling that. Many people make this mistake of, because there are so many people, so much technology is kind of getting into things, that just by automating and just by creating a technology startup, things will succeed. Well, if there's garbage going on, you will have automated garbage. It's not going to help in any way. So, the first comes the solution, then it is enabled by technology, which is great these days. But it doesn't happen that you first use the technology and then set a business model to it. Go reverse. Find the business model thing, a problem, and then use technology to solve that problem.
Very, very well said. I
So,
especially like the first part, right? That first decide why are you doing this?
yeah,
If you look at the word entrepreneur, it comes from the Sanskrit words of antarprerna. If there is no
yes,
antarprerna, what is the point of being entrepreneur? And
absolutely.
why use technology? Sometimes you've put it so aptly. Sometimes you find these people using such complex technology to solve a simple problem. Why
Yes,
not use the complex technology to solve a complex problem? Why
absolutely.
why complicate simple things? So,
Absolutely.
and a lot of the jargon you hear, etc., you start thinking whether they're using technology just for attracting investors or what.
It is quite often beginning to look like that. And one more important
Sure,
thing that
Manoj.
yeah, is that if you think that you are doing entrepreneurship because someday you're going to have a palatial house and in southern France and Mercedes, just because of that, don't do it, because nobody has succeeded because they wanted to make money and that's why I became entrepreneur. Solve a problem. There, if you can talk about solving a problem, doing it in excellence, money will flow. Money is the byproduct, not the reason why you do business or you become an entrepreneur. And be willing to work for 16 hours a day. Be willing that for first few years you will have nothing. You will not be eating the at the fancy restaurants. You will just be working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, and you will keep that fire burning inside you to solve that problem, whatever it takes.
I think you put it beautifully, and especially I will end with that last sentence, and I'll just reword it a little bit. If you follow your passion, fame and money will come as a byproduct. But if you follow money and fame, you'll never find your passion. So, with
Absolutely.
that, Manoj, I want to thank you for your very, very sane and practical advice today. Thank you. Have a great evening. Talk to you again soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me.
Thank you, Manoj.